I know you're obviously a fan of the original
Yeah.
Evil Dead films. I was wondering how kind of distinctly do you remember watching those films for the first time? Like, do you kind of have a very distinct memory of them?
There is an origin story for my relationship with these movies, which was, I grew up in a house where everybody watched horror movies, and I was the youngest by 8 years, my siblings. But my dad's a big horror movie fan as well. So he showed me The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 in a back to back viewing on VHS when I was about 8 years old.
Okay, yeah.
So that's quite an impressionable age to see movies like that. But I was a big movie fan from a young age. And, he was kind of happy to share these with me, and they left a mark on me, the mark of the beast that I've never been able to shake.
Yeah, and so then when all these years later Sam Raimi kind of approaches you,
Yeah.
presumably on one hand that's great to have that vote of confidence, but is there a certain amount of kind of a daunting aspect to that as well?
Like, I think, look, I genuinely had harbored ambitions to make an Evil Dead movie, especially when they rebooted in 2013 and I was getting my career off the ground, trying to move from making short films into being a feature filmmaker. I thought, damn, I would love that opportunity. And I actually remember at the time I'd just signed up with some new agents, and a very Hollywood question, which is like, what franchises and IP do you want to go after? And there was really just one, which was Evil Dead. But at the same time, as I was having that conversation, Sam Raimi was watching The Hole in the Ground and reached out to me. Hole in the Ground being my first feature film, reached out to me and connected. I was never daunted by making this movie. I was excited by the prospect. The really scary part was when I was asked to take a serious look and to figure out what I would do, was that if I didn't find a story that I wanted to tell, I'd have to say no.
Yeah.
That was the terrifying part. Once I'd found that story and brought it to the guys and they liked it, then I was excited. And obviously every movie that you make, there's apprehension, because it's like getting into a new relationship. You've got to live with this for the next 2 or 3, well, forever. But in terms of the making of it, you've got to live with it for 2, 3, 4 years. It's going to dominate your life. But thankfully I found a story that I wanted to tell.
Yeah, and with that story, was it from quite early on the intention to kind of take the main thrust of the action away from the kind of cabin in the woods setting
Yeah.
and have something in I guess, an urban environment?
Yeah, because look, the fact that the movie had been rebooted in 2013, I didn't want to reboot a reboot. And I knew we weren't going to have Ash in the story. And I felt like going back to the cabin, I was just going to tie myself up in knots in trying to make it original. So the furthest place I could think of from a cabin in the woods was the top floor of an apartment building in LA. So it felt like a natural place to go. But also, I like telling stories about the domestic circumstances, families in peril, that those kind of dangers are fertile places to allow me to freak out an audience, which is kind of what my job is. So once I was able to go there, I felt really comfortable that I could do something fresh. And that was definitely what the guys wanted and what I wanted as well. So we were all hunting down the same thing.
Yeah, and then when it comes to kind of specific nods back to the original films, whether kind of visual nods and some of the set pieces and stuff, how do you kind of draw the line of kind of between homage and then having to kind of do your own thing?
Yeah. The order of events in development was find the story that I wanted to tell, then bring in the horror. And as I brought in the horror, it was always about my own ideas first. But obviously these little other things sneak in because I'm a fan of the franchise. But they were like, that was like the seasoning on top more than the thing that I had to kind of hunt down. There's a few, like I don't call them Easter eggs in the sense they're very overt. Like you can see they're right in front of you. They were moments I thought about that I wanted to create and put my own spin on, and put them in the movie. But like outside of that, it was really about just trying to tell my own story as best I could, but trusting and knowing that I understood the DNA of what makes an Evil Dead movie special, which is the energy, and the entertainment factor, the ferocity, the relentlessness. They were the things I needed to package up and make sure drove this movie.
Yeah. At any point, was there any kind of advice from Sam Raimi or anything that kind of stood out to you, or kind of that you kind of bore in mind while you were?
Yeah, look, I think there's kind of seeds of support all the way through. I do remember one early conversation that he said just make sure you use the book and make sure the Deadites are scary. And I was in the nicest possible way, cheekily, like, of course, dude, like I really want to make that happen. But other than that, he was, the guys really wanted Sam and the team. They kind of backed my vision and wanted me to go somewhere else with it, to kind of wake up the monster and do something new. But there was always that support in the background if I needed to ask questions or seek advice on certain things.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that the kind of amount of fake blood used in the film is 6,500 liters.
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering what were the kind of biggest or the most challenging, with all that kind of in mind, all these kind of factors? What were the most challenging sequences to put together?
Well, there's one sequence that has the elevator sequence has a hell of a lot of blood in it. That was really hard because putting two characters in a wooden box along with the camera person and filling it up with blood. It's funny how your brain works. Even as a filmmaker, I was like, it's cool, you just open the door and shoot. It's like, no, wait a minute, then all the blood will come out. That was extremely challenging to create. It took multiple solutions to actually create the claustrophobia, create this rise of blood and then the wave of blood that kind of follows after it. So, but that's all about preparation. It's months of research and development and planning and head scratching and terror. That's the thing. This movie's made to terrify people, but I was terrified by some of the things I had to put on screen from a technical point of view. That was very challenging. The monstrous conclusion to the movie was extraordinarily challenging to create as well. But even some of the simplest moments in the film were really, because the film has a lot of visual style in terms of its verve and the camera moves a lot. So there was never a one-size-fits-all solution to any of the kind of more visceral moments in the movie. They all needed a lot of attention, a lot of focus, and a lot of detail to get them just right.
Yeah, I think some of the things that had me kind of the most kind of watching through my fingers and stuff was anything to do with kind of chewing glass and all that kind of stuff.
Nobody likes chewing glass, right? Well, actually, some people probably. Deadites like chewing glass, apparently.
But I wondered, what are the kind of the things in the film that if you were a viewer you'd be most kind of like, oh, I need to look away. I need to.
See, the weird thing is because I'm a sicko, I wouldn't look away from any of it. I think for me, sometimes it's the small things, like the little earring pull is one that does kind of make my teeth feel a little strange. Like, that's an uncomfortable one for me. Nobody wants to get a cheese grater to any part of their body, especially because we've all done a knuckle in the past on a cheese grater, so we can only imagine what that's like if it's used as a weapon, as it is in the film. And yeah, chewing glass does not seem like something that I would like to do. Yeah. Is that a circus thing? Do people chew glass? Is it actually... I know that people swallow swords. Do people chew glass? Sure it's a thing?
Must
okay,
be,
yeah.
And then finally, now that you've kind of made this film, do you kind of envisage a return to Evil Dead in the future, or is this kind of, you've done it now and you do other things?
Yeah, like it's someone said to me the other day, like, you know, the movie's been well reviewed, so drop the mic and walk away. But I also feel a great affinity to the characters, so it's all about I'll say let the audience decide. If people want more of these characters or this particular aspect of the world, I obviously feel a sense of ownership. But equally, this is a movie that, you know, hits a pretty hot temperature. It's quite intense. There's also, from my point of view, maybe I want to do something tonally different, because it would be pretty hard to make a movie much more intense than this without it just exploding. So yeah, I'm both interested in what can happen in this world, but also, you know, as a writer, exploring multiple different ideas. Like my first movie, The Hole in the Ground, is psychological horror. It's quite quiet, like a whisper at the back of your neck. This movie's like a bloody scream in your face. But I might just want to go somewhere else in the playpen and do something tonally a little bit different again.